Definitely thinking about who we're pruning for when we're pruning in all of our fields and what the end result is going to be. All pruning happens during the winter because that's the time of year that the vines go dormant. Pruning, it has to be done by hand. When you get down to the specifics of how many spurs you're leaving and how long the shoots are, there's no machine right now that can get into a field and analyze every position. It is a complete art.
Anything that you see that is very light wood, like all of this, happened last year. Anything that is of this kind of texture, a little bit more shaggy bark on it, is 2-year wood. An important principle to remember is that grapes will only grow on wood that is growing in that same year, 1-year-old wood. So if you're counting on grapes to grow on some of this old wood here, it isn't going to happen. The only place grapes are going to appear is on new buds that shoot off of that. You have to have new wood forming for the following year, and we do that through what's called a renewal spur. These are short stems with at least 2 buds on them, and we create a placement of 2 of these per lateral to replace this the next year, hence the name renewal spur. Now, I'm just going to show you the good, the bad, and ugly on this, because if we look at this vine over here, you can see that it looks pretty confusing. Let's begin. Over on this side here, we have, you can see clearly, this is older wood. It will not fruit grapes again, but we have a very nice young lateral going here. We're going to make this our cordon on this top wire. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this side. There it is. We've simplified right away. We need 2 renewal spurs. Well, that has 2 buds. There's 1 renewal spur, 1 bud, 2 bud. There's the second one off. And you can see they kind of grab on. Now we have one side that is already almost done here. We're going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Trim right past it. Go ahead and get that out of there. Trim off these side branches. And we have now completed 1/4 of our pruning job just in those first few cuts. We're now halfway down the job here. So let's go ahead. And there you have it.
Let's go over some grapevine anatomy. This is a bud. Here we have a trunk. Here we have a cordon. Here are some canes. This is a spur. This is an internode. This is a non-count bud. Shoots are succulent growth that come from the bud during the growing season. Leaves, fruit, stems, and tendrils are all found on shoots. Once a shoot drops its leaves and becomes woody, it is considered a cane.
You may be wondering why we prune grapes. Well, the main reason is to control the yield. If a grapevine was left unpruned, it would have hundreds of fruit-bearing nodes that could potentially produce fruit. Having all that fruit on the vine would cause it to become unbalanced. Unbalanced vines fall into two categories: overcropped and undercropped. Overcropped vines are vines that have too many buds left on them after pruning. Fruit from overcropped vines will have lower Brix levels, reduced colors, flavors, and aromas in the juice at harvest. Eventually, overcropped vines will lose productivity and die. Overcropped vines also have a hard time lignifying canes. This means after producing fruit last year, the vine didn't have a lot of carbohydrate reserves left in it to harden off the wood.
As you can see here, this is a cane that did not lignify properly last fall. It's very easily broken, and the inside of it is brown as opposed to a live cane, which would be green.
This makes it harder to find good canes while pruning next year.
An overcropped vine will produce canes that are excessively vigorous, also known as bullwood. These canes are also not very fruitful. When pruning, you typically cut off 80 to 90% of last year's growth. Medium to darker colored canes will be more fruitful than lighter colored ones. A darker colored cane means that it was exposed to more sunlight while growing the previous year. The more sunlight a developing bud receives, the more fruitful it will be.